with healing with the body. How do the body code and the emotion code work? We're going to talk about that and much, much more tonight. And tonight's Reawaken You, waiting for our sound effect, it's my favorite part of this. My thought is to do something kind for someone and to reach out. Today I read about the suicide about someone, and not too long ago I had a very close friend who lives on the other coast tell me that she had been going through a really rough time and she kind of withdrew and didn't count on the support of her friends. So just check in with people you know, because sometimes we never know the pain that people are holding, and someone might really need to have your friendship or that smile or that reaching out that can make a difference in their life. Okay, we're going to tell you about tonight's guest. Dr. Bradley Nelson is a holistic chiropractor, physician, and medical intuitive, and is one of the world's foremost experts in the emerging fields of energetic medicine and energy psychology. His best-selling book, The Emotion Code, helps people improve their lives by ridding themselves of the imbalancing emotional baggage. Users have found freedom from emotional problems such as depression and anxiety, as well as physical problems including fatigue, pain, and disease. A key element of the Emotion Code is removing emotional baggage that is clustered around the heart, interfering with one's ability to find love and success. Dr. Nelson has coined this the heart wall, and it has been called the most important discovery in the history of energy medicine. In 2009, he channeled his life's work into a self-study course, The Body Code System, which teaches students how to balance the body in 6 key areas. It is being used successfully by doctors and lay people to improve the health of thousands of people all over the world. Welcome, Dr. Nelson.
It's so great to be back.
We are glad to have you. I was just telling you earlier, we'll talk about it briefly, but we had a great interview with Dr. Nelson on the Emotion Code, and I'm happy to report when we last talked, I'm now engaged and getting married in about 3 weeks.
Good for you.
Awesome. So that heart wall is gone. Very excited about that.
That's awesome.
So let's get started. Tell us about the Body Code. What is that?
Okay. Well, basically, I'm an old computer programmer, right? And when I had a business back in the early 80s before anybody had computers. It was called the Computer Tutor. And I used to go into offices and businesses and learn their processes. And then I would write the software, and they would get a little computer like an IBM PC or an Apple II or something. And they would, they would use that software. So I understood early on how computers worked and so on. And that understanding really helped me later on, because when I got into practice, I was really focused on trying to really truly understand what was wrong with my patients, okay? I knew that I could tap into the subconscious mind, and I knew that the subconscious mind had all those answers. The conscious mind is where we live and spend our waking hours, and we think our conscious mind is pretty smart, but, when's the last time you lost your car in a parking lot, or lost your keys, or lost your purse, right? Our conscious mind isn't that smart, but the subconscious mind is this incredibly powerful, incredibly smart, archiving holographic computer that is logging everything we do, every moment of every day, every face you've ever seen in a crowd, everything you've ever eaten or tasted or touched or smelled, the whole history of your health or disease is all in there somewhere, in that subconscious mind of yours. And so what I was trying to do during those years is I was trying to figure out not so much how to tap into the subconscious mind, but how to come up with an organized way to find all the imbalances that can actually occur. And my computer programming background really helped, because it enabled me to actually do this. And so I created a system of mind maps. Now, have you ever seen a mind map? That's where you'll have a central idea and then branches coming out from that idea. And by using the computer, I was able to create a computerized series of mind maps that enabled me to very rapidly drill down and figure out what a person really needed, what was really wrong with them. And so that's the Body Code. And by using this system, I was able to have success with patients that had been cast off by the medical profession. In fact, during the last 10 years I was in practice, I was really specializing in working with people who had been cast off, who had been told there was nothing that could be done for them. There was no hope for them medically. Medicine had nothing to offer them. And usually they were told there was no cure for them. And these are people who are suffering from things like lupus and chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia and cancer patients and things like that. And what I found was that the reality is, you see, when a person has been diagnosed with some kind of a disease, what's happened is their body has manifested a certain series of symptoms. And they go to the doctor and they say, "Doctor, I've got this symptom and this symptom and this symptom." And the doctor says, "Oh, well, this is such and such disease, and there's no cure for this." Well, when a doctor says that there's no cure for something, what it really means is that there is no drug that will cure it and no surgery that will cure it. And Western medicine is pretty much limited to drugs and surgery. Okay, so those are the things that are available. And so if a drug won't do it or if surgery won't do it, then, well, you're pretty much out of luck with Western medicine. So I was seeing these people, and what I was finding is that most of these people were able to get well if we could figure out what the underlying causes of their problems were. Now, what I found was that there are really 6 categories of things that cause all disease. And those 6 categories are things like pathogens, where some kind of a viral or bacterial or fungal infection gets into the body, or you have some kind of a parasite. Another kind of imbalance is nutritional, where you have some kind of a nutritional deficiency. Maybe you don't have enough vitamin C or vitamin E, or maybe you're deficient in some kind of a mineral. Also, I found that structural misalignment in the body was another big category. So in other words, if you've got a bone out of alignment somewhere and you've got irritation in the nervous system or irritation in the joint, well, your health level is going to go down. I found also that toxicity is another huge problem for people. That if the body is toxic in some way, and of course we're all toxic now in the world that we're living in, because toxins are everywhere, even in the Arctic and Antarctic. There's nowhere on Earth you can go to escape toxins. If you're toxic, then your immune system is going to be lowered, and you're going to be more liable to end up with some kind of a disease process and so on. And then there were other things I found. Those are the first 4 categories. There are a couple of other categories. One of those categories is what we refer to as the circuitry of the body. So, for example, the acupuncture system. If there's an imbalance in that acupuncture system, you're not going to be as healthy as you could be. Organs and glands have circuits, okay, essentially. You can overload an organ or gland, and that will create problems. And then the other area is energetic imbalances, things like trapped emotions, where you experience a traumatic emotional event and the energy of the event stays with you. So anyway, by looking at the body in these 6 different areas, I was able to figure out what was really wrong with people, and I was able to get people well in fairly short order.
Can you briefly tell us about the emotion code? And people can watch your interview from a year ago in October 2012, and it's fantastic, and I recommend that. But briefly explain that, and then do you recommend people using both the body code and the emotion code in conjunction, or one of the areas you mentioned that are the trapped emotions?
Well, yes, absolutely. What happens to us is that as we live our lives, we experience emotional events sometimes that are very powerful and that are imbalancing to the body. Maybe you go through a divorce. Maybe you're abused as a child. Maybe you have a very difficult job or a very difficult marriage, or maybe somebody dies in the family, or maybe you just have a really hard day and you're really upset emotionally. Well, when we experience intense emotions, sometimes those emotions are powerful enough that they imbalance the body. And what I found was, first of all, when we feel an emotion, what we're really feeling is a frequency of energy. Every emotion has a different frequency. So anger is a different frequency than sadness, and that's a different frequency than frustration. When we're feeling an intense emotion, sometimes that emotion can overwhelm the body, and that energy can become stuck in the body. And we call that a trapped emotion, which is literally a ball of energy from about the size of a baseball to about the size of a cantaloupe. We all have these, but they are disrupting the human race to a dramatic degree. And they are behind 80 to 90% of the pain that we experience, the diseases that we manifest, the self-sabotage that we have to deal with, our anxiety, our depression, our panic attacks, our phobias, our eating disorders, on and on and on. The single biggest underlying cause of the problems that we face in the world today, as far as our own bodies are concerned, is actually our emotional baggage. And that's the big breakthrough of the emotion code. We're finally now, for the first time in the 21st century here, finally understanding how our emotions affect us years, decades after some emotional event that we go through.
What role does energy play in the body code? You just touched on that briefly, but I think a lot of people, especially what I'd call modern medicine, and it's about getting drugs and surgery, energy has nothing to do with that.
Well, no, it really doesn't. Chemistry and the pharmaceutical industry and Western medicine is really based on Newtonian physics. Okay, and really now we're moving into a world in the 21st century where we're understanding that our bodies have really more to do with quantum physics by far than they have to do with Newtonian physics. In other words, for example, emotions, we don't really understand. We have not understood that the body itself is pure energy, and that we can measure thoughts, we know now, electronically, and we can measure emotions as well. And like I said, all emotions have different frequencies. Energy medicine, though, is definitely the future, and many doctors have talked about this for a long time. Dr. Oz recently said energy medicine is definitely the future. And I like to add to that and say that the future of energy medicine is really the emotion code and the body code, because we're looking at the body in a completely different way. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't sometimes need drugs, and sometimes we don't need surgery. Sometimes those things are very appropriate. And Western medicine is great to have because it's very appropriate at times. The problem, though, is that things have been skewed in favor of the pharmaceutical industrial complex, if you will, because of all the money. And so all the advertising and all the marketing that's taken place, and people have gotten to a point where they believe that if they have pain, the answer to that is some kind of a medication, or if they have cancer, the answer is chemotherapy, and so on. But I believe that the day is rapidly coming when we will look back on how Western medicine is taking care of problems like cancer right now in the current era, and we'll just shake our heads in disbelief that we could be so naive. Our bodies are so much more advanced than that. The human body has all the answers within it, and we can simply ask the body, and the body is only too willing to give us those answers. And that's the world that now we're moving into, and it's an incredibly exciting thing. I look forward to a day when Western medicine will recognize energy medicine, and I think that we're moving towards that quite rapidly, and that people will be able to get a combination of whatever it is that they really truly need. And that's what I've dedicated my life to, is to understanding what it is that people really truly need. I'm not interested in giving people a Band-Aid, never was. I've always wanted to know what was really going on and fixing the real true underlying imbalances that a person has. And that's really what the emotion code's about. And the body code, of course, too. The emotion code, by the way, is a part, it's a very small part, really, of the body code. The body code is the big picture. It's how we look at the whole entire body, and in very rapid order we can figure out what really is going on, whether there's some kind of a low-grade infection, whether there's nutritional deficiency, whether there's some kind of a toxin, or whatever it is, we can figure it out.
We've got a question for you on chat, Dr. Nelson. I want to remind everyone, if you have a question, ask on chat, and I'm happy to ask, or call in at 919-518-9773 or Skype Computers 2K Voice. Lisa would like to know, how does one take what you teach and use it to heal themselves?
Oh, well, basically, first of all, in the emotion code, okay, we teach you different methods of actually testing yourself. You see, a key to this, a key to the body code and to the emotion code, is the understanding that the subconscious mind knows what we need. But we have to tap into that subconscious mind. And we teach a number of different methods of doing that, okay? And all of these methods are easy to learn. Some are really simple. In fact, the simplest one is called the sway test. And if you want, I could demonstrate that right now.
That would be wonderful.
Okay. All right, here's how this works. If you think about a plant, okay, if you put a plant near a window, and you keep giving it water and so on, you'll notice after a while, if you haven't rotated the plant, it's going to be leaning over because it's going to grow towards the light coming in from the window, right? But did you know that if you take a plant and put it into a pot and put it into a room that has uniform lighting coming in from all around, it'll grow straight up, of course. But if you put a speaker near that plant, and if that speaker is blasting harsh, negative, irritating music, the plant will bend away from the music coming out of that speaker, and even the roots will bend away from that speaker. On the other hand, if that speaker is playing soothing, beautiful, classical music, the plant will grow towards the speaker, okay? And so plants have this natural ability to respond to their environment and to respond to what they unconsciously feel is negative or positive for them. Now, the human body has this same innate ability, and so our bodies will tend to sway forward. If you're standing in a very relaxed way, your body will tend to sway forward if you're holding thoughts of truth or positivity or congruency. By the same token, the body will tend to sway backward if you're holding thoughts of negativity or falsehood or incongruency. And we call this the sway test. And I'd like to show you how we can use this to tune into the subconscious mind. And then I'll explain how we can use this to actually get answers from the subconscious. So first of all, what I'd like you to do, if you want to follow along with me, you can do this sitting as long as you're sitting straight up in your chair and the back, your back is not touching the chair at all. Generally, it's a little easier to do if you're standing. So if you can stand, do that.
And this is recorded, so if you're driving or, not in a place to do this, you'll be able to rewind and rewatch.
Right. If you're driving, don't do it. So stand up if you can and drop your hands down to your sides. Close your eyes and just totally relax. And the first thing that you'll notice is as you're standing there in a very relaxed way, that there is a little bit of movement going on. Your body will oscillate a little bit. It might move a little to the right or left, maybe a little bit forward or backward, and that's normal. That's just your postural muscles working to keep you standing upright. But now what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to start thinking about something. We'll start with something negative. I'd like you to think about war. Think about that word, war. We hear that word every day. It's on the news constantly. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to really think for a moment about what that word means. War. What really goes on in war? Imagine having to explain to someone from another planet where war doesn't exist what we do here on this planet and what war really is and what really goes on. Dropping bombs on villages and people being killed and families being destroyed and all the suffering and all the tears shed in all the wars since this world started. Imagine what that would be like to try to explain that to somebody, what really goes on. Now, as you think about that word, war, and as you allow yourself to connect up with what that word really means, what you'll find is that suddenly your body will sway backward. And that's your subconscious mind trying to distance you from the sheer negativity of that thought, you see. Your subconscious, that spirit within you, doesn't really like that thought, and so it wants to get away from that. So you'll tend to sway backward. Okay? Now, let's try something positive. Okay? Let's imagine that you're surrounded with unconditional love. Okay? You're in this cocoon of unconditional love. Everything in the universe is filled with unconditional love for you specifically. Not only that, your heart is so full of love yourself. You have this ability to give unconditional love yourself. Imagine being filled with love. Imagine having a heart so filled with love for every creature, every being, all creation, that your heart can't even contain that love. That love expands out from your heart and it fills the immensity of space. Imagine what that would be like, to be a vessel of unconditional love. And the moment that your subconscious mind makes a connection with that energy, with that thought, at that same moment, your body will start to sway forward, because that's your subconscious mind, again, that spirit within you that is trying to get to that. It wants that. And I believe that that's possible eventually, as ages of time go on. I think that, we're eternal, immortal beings, and I think that that's possible for us. So your subconscious mind knows it, and it wants that. So that's the sway test. Now, for a lot of people, that's the first chance that they've ever had to have their subconscious mind actually speak to them. But your subconscious mind is a computer, and it will speak to you. So now what you can do is you can actually ask a question. And let's ask this question of your subconscious mind. And you might want to even just see this question out in front of you, maybe hanging in the air. Okay? That's what I do. Ask this question: do I have a trapped emotion? And just stand there in a very, very relaxed way, or sit there straight up and think of that question. Do I have a trapped emotion? Focus on that. Do I have a trapped emotion? Do I have a trapped emotion? And if you do, your subconscious mind will tend to make you sway forward. Okay? And that's the body's way of saying yes, giving you a yes answer. If your body sways backwards, that's how your body gives you a no answer. So this is what we call the sway test. Now, this is the first method of testing that we teach in the emotion code and the body code. And it actually works really, really well. We also teach a number of different methods of muscle testing, and we teach you how to muscle test yourself and how to get answers on your own body, various different ways, and also how to test other people directly, having them hold their arm out and so on. So we find that muscle testing is a really easy way to tune in and get information out of that subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind of the individual wants to give those answers up. It wants to give those answers up so that it can be well. That's where we're at. So hopefully that was interesting. Did you try that one?
Yes, and I apparently have some trapped emotions. We'll work on it later. Rome wasn't built in a day. That's my attitude. We'll get through it all, and I'm a work in progress. Can you briefly talk? You had mentioned the 6 categories, but could you maybe take the categories, tell us a little more, and then give a concrete example? For instance, you have said this has helped people with chronic fatigue. So is it maybe if you find out there's a parasite that could lead to that, or maybe examples for people listening, they might be like, wow, I suffer from that, and maybe that would be something that's an answer for me.
Absolutely. Well, actually, let me tell you a story. I had a patient once who came to me. I met her at a fibromyalgia support group, actually, at a hospital. And I spoke about fibromyalgia. I did a presentation at this hospital, a fibromyalgia support group. And this woman sat off to my right. And I spoke for an hour. And the whole time that I was speaking, she was crying. She had tears coming down the whole entire time. And when the meeting was over, there were people gathering around trying to talk to me. And she was there. And I was having a hard time understanding her because she was kind of sobbing. But she told me that for many, many years, 19 years, she had fibromyalgia. And she'd seen many different doctors during that time, and all of them had told her basically the same thing. Nothing can be done for you. All you can do is take these drugs to suppress your symptoms, and this is how your life is going to be forever, until you die. This is it. This is a life sentence or a death sentence for you. You're never going to get well. And she said that she cried every day because she was in so much pain with this fibromyalgia, which, for those of you who don't know, fibromyalgia is this body pain in the muscles that is oftentimes all over the body. There's no known cure for it medically. Basically, the treatments are just to take medication and so on, but there's nothing that can really be done for it in Western medicine. And she said part of the reason she was crying that night was because I was the first doctor that she had ever heard say that she might actually be able to get well, that there might be some kind of hope for her. Well, I started working with her, and here's what we found. She had a number of different pathogens in the body. She had parasites. 85% of the U.S. population is infested with parasites, okay? And very, very common. So that was one thing that she had. We had to give her some herbs to take care of the parasites. She had a bunch of different infections going on in the body, low-grade infections, but they were infections nonetheless. In fact, she had 59 different viral infections going on in her body. And what had happened with her was that her immune system got so low that, and this is not uncommon, when she'd walk down a hallway and someone would sneeze that was sick, she'd inhale that virus, and that virus would now set up in her body. Her immune system was too weak to put up any kind of a defense. There was no battle that took place, okay? And so now she's got a new hitchhiker. So she had all these different infections going on. She had a lot of different nutritional imbalances, okay? In other words, we found imbalances in all 6 of those areas that we deal with in the body code. And so we had to give her all the nutrition that she needed to get well. But her subconscious mind knew exactly what she needed. She had a lot of structural misalignment going on, so we corrected those. She had a lot of toxicity going on, so we gave her some things and helped her to get rid of that toxicity. And she had a lot of trapped emotions, and she had something going on that we call a heart wall, which is where negative emotional energies will form a wall around the heart to protect the heart from being totally broken at some point in her life. This was created, so we had to take down that heart wall. And so we were attacking all of these different areas, all these 6 different categories of problems all at the same time. And within about 3 weeks, she was pretty much pain-free except for she had a little bit of arthritis in one thumb that we were still working with. But I want you to think about that. Pain-free after almost 2 decades. And you know, that wasn't really that unusual for me back then. And the reality is that it's a whole new paradigm, really. But it makes so much sense. If the subconscious mind has the answers, why not ask it? And it does have the answers. And that's the shortest distance from point A to point B. Point A being where you are now, and point B being getting completely well from whatever it is you're dealing with. So the beauty of the work that we're doing, see, with the emotion code and the body code now, is that the emotion code, you know, for $20, you can buy an emotion code book on Amazon. I think they're even less than that. And you can learn how to get rid of your emotional baggage. And 80% of your problems are probably just from your emotional baggage. Getting rid of that alone can make tremendous differences in how you're feeling, not only physically, but also emotionally and mentally and so on. And then with the body code, for the cost of about 1 day's stay in a hospital, you can buy the most advanced self-study course on energy healing that the world, I think, has ever known. And you can learn how to work on yourself. You can work on your own kids, on your own parents, on your loved ones, and so on. And if you enjoy this work, you can actually become certified in the emotion code and even certified in the body code, and then you can actually do this for a living. And because this is energy medicine, it has the added benefit of being able to be done at any distance. There is no barrier of distance whatsoever. So many of our practitioners, and we have over 1,200 practitioners now in 39 or 40 countries, many of them have clientele that span the globe because you don't have to actually be there. It's energy medicine. So it's
you
pretty amazing.
Can do it over Skype.
You absolutely can. Many people do.
We have a comment on chat, and my computer just died. But Lisa said that she suffered from fibromyalgia, released all the emotions that were around that, and felt that it was her soul awakening being suppressed. So, and Lisa can elaborate on that, or I'd say related to consciousness. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, you know, we become this person because of our emotional baggage. We become this person that we were not really intended to become. We're dragging all of our baggage with us, and it colors our lives, and it interferes with our ability to make clear decisions, and it interferes with our ability to form relationships. Our trapped emotions get in the way of our creativity, so that our lives end up being much less than they really otherwise could be. We've had people come back to us, especially after having the heart wall removed. The heart, I believe, is really the core of our being and the seat of our soul and the source of our creativity and the source of our love and everything else. The ancients believed that. And now modern science is actually showing us that it appears they were exactly right, and I believe that totally. But we've had people come back to us who have told us that for the first time in their lives, they can actually feel the love of that God or that higher power for them when that wall's taken down. We have people who fall in love who never thought they ever would. Women, men in their 60s, okay, even later. People who suddenly feel for the first time happiness who never felt happiness before in their entire life. Suddenly, by having these emotions removed, their whole life changes. And it's really an astonishing thing. But we get emails every day now from people all over the world that are like this. And so that's what's driving the success of the emotion code and the body code as well, because it's time for us. It's time for us to wake up. We've been living this existence where we have been held down by the powers that be that want to maintain control over us. The reality is every single person on this planet is a healer. That's the birthright of every one of us. It's time for us to take back that birthright. The emotion code and the body code make it so simple to do. There is no simpler method to become a healer, to unleash your own healing abilities than the emotion code and the body code. That's it. And, let me tell you something, Julie. I don't take any credit for this work at all. I believe that, you see, when I was in practice for 17 years, I got in the habit of making a connection, asking for help from up above with every person that I saw. And I would just take just a moment and direct my thoughts to heaven and just ask in a very humble, sincere way, please help me to know what this person really needs. And it was that asking for help, I believe, that enabled me to bring these things into the world. And so I don't take any credit because it all came from up above. And I really believe that these methods are God's gift to the world at a time when we really desperately need them. It is time for us to take back our power and to learn the art of healing, because this world is not going to heal unless it's healed one person at a time. And that's our motto, healing the world one person at a time. That's how it's going to change. And every trapped emotion that's released, and every heart wall especially that's released from somebody, every time a heart is opened, the grip of darkness on this world is diminished just a little bit. But as we continue to whittle away, you see, this world is going to change. It's inevitable. We're headed for a really incredible, amazing future that's definitely coming.
So the body code and the emotion code, or how I would term it, you're helping raise consciousness and awareness. I mean, really.
Oh, yeah. Well, absolutely, sure. Because if you think about it, when you release your emotional baggage and you get rid of your heart wall and so on, it's almost like unzipping this suit that you've somehow put on during your lifetime. Some of this suit or some of this baggage is actually inherited from your ancestors, but with the emotion code, we're able to get rid of that stuff. In the body code, we handle a lot of other energetic imbalances as well, other things that can be inherited. And so you're able to unzip that old suit, and you're able to step out of that old suit and unlock yourself, disconnect yourself from all of that baggage. Some of it was picked up in your lifetime, and some of it was picked up in the womb, and some was picked up at conception from ancestors and so on. But you're able to disconnect from that baggage. And then suddenly, who are you? Suddenly you're a different person. Suddenly you're the person that you were intended to be, or you're moving much closer to that person. And so that's what's so really cosmic about this, and so powerful, and so really so life-changing and so incredible about this, is that I believe that every single person has within them, within their heart, a perfect creation for them. It's different for every single person. And our baggage is keeping us from manifesting that. And so many people are alone because they have trapped emotions keeping them alone. So many people have a heart wall. When that wall is taken down, people often fall in love and get married that wouldn't have before, or that couldn't before. In fact, one of our practitioners was telling me that January she took on 3 new clients who were all single women who all happened to have a heart wall. And she took down the heart wall for these three women, released the trapped emotions making up that heart wall. And by Valentine's Day, they were all three in relationships and all three were in love. And that's the kind of thing that we see. Not uncommon at all. So
I have this question just popped into my head. Would the body code be able to help something like schizophrenia or mental illness, or is that a whole different ball of wax?
Well, it has in the past. And what we find is that every single person is different. You could take 1,000 people with schizophrenia, for example, and you would find that each one of those people has different underlying causes. You would see some things in common, though, okay? But the way that we look at it, the old saying of the holistic physician is anything can cause anything. And so the way we look at it is we simply allow the subconscious mind of the individual to take us wherever it wants to take us. We fix whatever we find. We don't make any claims about healing anything or fixing or curing anything. All we're trying to do is just correct the underlying imbalances that a person has. And by doing that, we believe that the body naturally wants to be well, wants to heal. And so we haven't really found anything yet that can't be helped. In other words, all the diseases, okay, that people suffer from, we find are really the result of imbalance. And that's the oldest idea in the history of the world, and certainly the oldest idea in the history of healing, that all disease results from that one thing, and that one thing is imbalance. So with the body code, what we've done is we've simply figured out how many different kinds of imbalance there are. And there are actually 6 kinds of imbalances, and those are the things that I mentioned. By correcting those, you can actually bring the body back into a state of balance in the vast majority of cases. So,
do you find that most people have maybe imbalances in several different areas or predominantly in one?
Yep. Well, most people are imbalanced in several areas, and the reality is you can think of your health as being like a plane that's flying along straight and level, okay? And stress is turbulence that you get into, okay? It's like turbulence for an airplane. And if you get into too much turbulence, you may actually lose control, and you may go into a spin in an airplane. And what we find is that a lot of people's health has gone into a tailspin. In fact, we find that about 85% of people are actually in this downward spiral where they're actually losing their health and they don't realize it. And at first, it's not really noticeable typically for most people. But there are 2 major signs that we see that someone is in this downward spiral. One sign is pain. And you can tell when someone's in this spiral sometimes because a person will say to you, well, Julie, I'd like to go to the mall with you, but I can't. I'm just in too much pain. And a person like that, oftentimes, if they don't reverse that spiral, they get more and more imbalanced, and they'll develop more and more problems, more and more imbalances in those 6 different areas, until eventually they wake up one day and they realize, wow, I don't just have some pain somewhere. I have chronic pain. My muscles are killing me, and this is not going away. There must be something really wrong with me. And so they go to the doctor, and they say, doctor, my muscles are hurting. It's not going away. It's been like this for months and months and months. What's wrong with me? And so the doctor will poke them and prod them, and he'll come back and he'll say, well, we have a diagnosis. You have fibromyalgia, which literally means pain in the muscles. And then the person, this person calls up their friend and they say, oh, I'm so glad I got a diagnosis. The doctor said I have fibromyalgia. What does that mean? It means pain in the muscle. And then your friend says, well, wow, that's amazing. You said you had pain in your muscles. That doctor's a genius, right? And what's the cure for that? Well, there is no cure. And how has that resulted? It's resulted from being in that downward spiral too long and picking up too many imbalances. Can that be reversed? Absolutely. You can get back out of that spiral and you can get back on straight and level flight. Now, another major kind of symptom that we see when somebody's in that downward spiral is loss of energy. And you can tell because people will say, well, Julie, I'd like to go play golf with you, but I just don't have the energy. I'm just exhausted all the time. And so those people oftentimes end up, after a year or so goes by, going to the doctor and saying, "Doctor, I'm chronically fatigued. I don't know what to do. I'm just exhausted all the time." And the doctor ends up after a while telling him, "Well, we know what's wrong with you. You have chronic fatigue syndrome." And they say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad to know what's wrong with me." And they call their friend, and their friend says, "Well, you said you were chronically fatigued. That's amazing. Your doctor's a genius." But you see, again, the reality is it's just the result of this downward spiral. Now, sometimes you're in that downward spiral and you don't really know it, but suddenly you're diagnosed with some kind of a major disease. You think you're feeling fine, and you end up with a lump, and they tell you you've got cancer and so on. So what we want to do is we want to get people out of that spiral. And the beauty of it now is that you can learn how to do that yourself. And that's the body code. That's the emotion code.
I want to remind everyone, if you have a question for Dr. Nelson, chat it, and I'll be happy to ask, or call 919-518-9773 or Computer's 2K voice. So if someone were to go to a body code practitioner, do they fill out a questionnaire? Do you do muscle testing? Kind of what would an exam be like, or a consultation?
Well, sure. We have, like I said, we have about 1,200 practitioners around the world. We have just over 100 body code practitioners and about 1,100 emotion code practitioners in about 39 or 40 countries. And if you go to our website at healerslibrary.com or at drbradleynelson.com, you can see the list of the practitioners, and you can choose somebody that you want to work with you. And yes, if it's a body code practitioner, they will ask you questions about what's going on with you and what your goals are and what's happening with you. And then a typical body code exam is where what we do is we look at the different organs in the body, and we test to see if those organs are content or if they're in a state of balance. And if they're not, we write those down. We find out some interesting things about the body. We find out how well your immune system is functioning, and that's a number, the percentage that the subconscious mind will actually give. We can test to see how well your immune system is functioning on a scale of 0 to 100%. The subconscious mind will give that number to us. Most people that have been diagnosed with a major disease, we find their immune function is in single digits, below 10% typically. Now, when I was in practice, by correcting the various imbalances that we find in the body code, I found we're usually able to get people back up into a 90% range, usually within a month or so. And, of course, that can make an enormous difference because your immune system is really where it's at. So we look at other things as well. We check to see if you have imbalances in any of those 6 areas. And then if you're working with a practitioner like that, then that practitioner is going to work on addressing those imbalances as rapidly as possible.
Can you talk? Go ahead. You weren't finished. Finish your thought.
Oh, I was just going to say, just to reiterate again, the subconscious mind knows exactly what you need. And I mean, it knows exactly. In fact, let me just tell you a really quick story if I can. I had a patient that came to me once who had, she'd been in the hospital for about 5 days. She had this terrific pain in her right lower abdomen. And they ran every test known to man. They couldn't find anything wrong with her. Finally, after 5 days in the hospital, they released her and they said, "It's all in your head. We can't help you." They were beginning to think she was a little bit crazy, I think. And they let her go. And so she came to me, and I tested her using the body code and cleared some things. And one of the things that I found was that she actually had a deficiency of chromium. And I didn't think that much about it at the time, but it showed up in the testing. Her subconscious mind led us to that. And we didn't have any at the time, so I said, "I think you should go get some chromium, go to the health food store and buy some." But she didn't do it. I saw her the next day, and she was actually gradually getting worse. And I mean, she was not in good shape. I remember thinking, this woman must have some kind of an appendix infection going on. I think she might die right here on my table. Her appendix might burst, and then I might go to jail or something because she died in my office. That's what I was thinking, because she was really in pain. So I started testing her again using the body code, and immediately the first thing that showed up was chromium again, which I thought from the day before was just an incidental finding. And so I said to her, "Look, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to the health food store right now. Go there right now. Buy some chromium. Take it right there, okay, because your body really needs it, apparently." And so she did. About 20 minutes later, this woman is literally jumping up and down in my waiting room saying, I'm fixed, that fixed me, that's amazing. And she asked me, how did that work? And honestly, I said, I have no idea. I don't know why she needed it. I don't know why that was causing the pain. I still have no idea. I don't think anybody has any idea. But that's a great example of how the subconscious knows what you need, and it will guide you. See?
Now, you had mentioned earlier at the beginning about a mind map. What's the body code mind map?
Well, the body code mind map is it's a mind mapping system that comes with the body code. Now, the body code is really a self-study course, okay? And if you're interested in looking at it, you can go to bodycodehealing.com, You can look at it. And it's a whole course, really. It's like a college course in energy healing. But it's really beyond a college course. It's everything that I have learned through prayer and blood, sweat, and tears during all those years I was working with patients day in and day out. And it includes the maps. It includes all the explanation. There's lots and lots of DVDs and CDs. And I mean, it really is, like I said before, it's the most advanced self-study course in energy healing that I believe the world has ever known. And you could spend $150,000 and go to school for 4 years and become some kind of a natural doctor. But when you get out, you would still need the body code because you're not going to get the information in the body code in any school anywhere on the planet. It's just not taught. This is the real stuff.
So could someone, I have zero background in chemistry, anything. I mean, I just don't have that scientific brain, but if it's something that I would want to learn, is that possible to work on myself and my family?
Absolutely. And that's the whole point, see, is that you can work on yourself and you can work on your family. And there is so much that can be done for ourselves. Now, I used to call, when I first came up with this, in fact, let me tell you how this really, this was created during all these years that I was in practice, okay? And I had such great results using this system of looking at the body and finding the imbalances and fixing them. As time went on, things became more and more and more simple, you see. And I love simplicity. I'm a great lover of simplicity. I love what Einstein said. He said that things should be made as simple as possible, but no simpler. He had a great sense of humor. But anyway, I eventually, I've taught parts of the body code over the years, but I never really planned on teaching all of it. I thought it was just too powerful for the general public. And I imagined that eventually I would teach seminars just to doctors only on this. But about 3.5 years ago, I woke up one morning to find my mind full of instruction. And the instruction was very clear and very specific. The instruction was, you need to take everything that you know about natural healing and you need to put it into a self-study course that anyone can learn, and you need to make it available to anybody or everybody. And I remember thinking, are you sure about this? Because this is really going to be a lot of work. And it was. It took a whole year to create it. And but that's really what it's about, and that's where it came from. And I used to call it, when it was first released, I used to call it the ultimate self-help kit for the apocalypse, because I think that the day may come when we don't have doctors to turn to, and won't it be great to be able to work and help and heal ourselves? And I have 2 daughters that are in their late 20s, and they said, "Dad, you can't call it that. You can't." So we don't call it that.
I like that. That's clever. So it sounds like it can really work on anything. My brother, who's 47, had an unexpected stroke. So is this something we're in the process of helping him get back to 100%? Is it something that he'd benefit from? I mean, is there really, it sounds like you feel it can help anyone.
Well, there are limitations sometimes to things. I mean, not everybody gets well. It's not appropriate for everything. If you break your leg, for example, you should go to the hospital,
right,
and get that, get it set and so on. But what we find is that it's a beautiful way to tune in and just simply correct the imbalances that the subconscious mind says are there. Can it help in cases like a stroke? I don't know. It's possible. We've seen it help all kinds of things. And so so the beauty of it is that it makes it so simple that anyone can do and anyone can learn. So if you've ever thought about wanting to really tap into your own healing abilities, the emotion code and the body code are a fantastic place to start because they are so simple and yet so powerful and so inclusive. In fact, I have to tell you a quick story. I was talking with a woman recently who told me that her son, she bought the emotion code in a soft cover book and also in audio, and she was reading it and listening to it, and her son picked it up and started reading it and listening to it. And after a couple of weeks, he started practicing on his friends. And a couple of weeks later, the phone rang, and there was a woman on the other end of the line, and she identified herself as the mother of one of her son's friends. And she said, "Listen," she said, "your son has been doing this emotional thing with the boys." And she said, "I haven't really paid much attention. But," she said, "I have to tell you something." She said, "My son has had a severe phobia of water for many years. And we've tried everything to fix him, and nothing has ever worked. But," she said, "right now, my son is in the swimming pool with the other boys. And," she said, "your son did this to him. Your son fixed his phobia." She said, "I don't understand how this is even possible. You've got to fill me in on what's going on. Those two boys are only 11 years old. Think about that. That's how easy the emotion code is, and the body code as well."
Oh, well, I need to do the emotion code. I didn't realize it. I couldn't today. I went to get a face treatment before the wedding, and they put a thing on, and I was like, I can't do it. I'm so claustrophobic. And the strange thing, I was never claustrophobic as a kid, and something happened in adulthood, and all of a sudden, I get claustrophobic. So I've got some homework to do.
Yeah, that's totally fixable. I mean, what we find is that most phobias result from just one or two trapped emotions oftentimes. And so correcting those can make just an immediate change in the body. You have to try it.
Oh, no, I will, but I didn't even think, I don't know why it didn't occur to me, but it didn't. So you had mentioned that you have practitioners, so if there's someone out there who's like, you know what, I just don't know if I'm up for learning the course on my own or doing self-healing, how do they find a practitioner? How do they know they're legit?
Well, we certify our practitioners, okay? So the best way to find a practitioner is to go to one of our websites, either at healerslibrary.com or at drbradleynelson.com. That's drbradleynelson.com. Healers Library is HEALERS library.com. And if you just click on the Find a Practitioner button, you'll see a Google map that shows all of our practitioners all over the world. And the nice thing about that is you can read about them, and you can go through that list, and you can see who you might want to work with. And the beauty of it is it doesn't have to be somebody where you live. It can be somebody, I mean, you might find that your best practitioner, the person that you like the most, that can help you the most, maybe they're in Hong Kong, or maybe they're in London, or maybe they're in Auckland, New Zealand. And that's okay, because this is energy work, and it works just as well at a distance as it does in person. So welcome to the 21st century, Julie.
Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic, because I think it's very important to have a good personality fit and someone that you feel comfortable with, because I believe that aids in healing.
Absolutely.
So there are a couple questions I like to ask each guest. The first is, what would you say to someone out there watching or listening who's in a really tough spot? Maybe they have chronic fatigue, or they're going through a divorce, or they lost their job. What advice would you have for them?
Well, my advice, if you're in a tough situation, my advice is to not give up hope, number one, okay? To hang in there and realize that that there are things that you can do to help yourself, okay? There's help that you can get from our practitioners. There's help that you can get from your own self. You can go online. You can get a copy of the Emotion Code book, okay? Go to Amazon. You can get the book on Amazon. You can go to any of our websites and get the book. And if you read the Emotion Code book, it'll help you to understand what I'm talking about and how our bodies become imbalanced by these trapped emotions. And you can start using this to help yourself. And I mean, it's amazing how powerfully it can work. Let me read to you a story. This is something that was sent in by a woman named Elena. She worked on herself, and She released her own heart wall. And oftentimes that's the most important thing that you can do for yourself, because that is oftentimes what's most in the way of you being able to manifest a better life. She said, I'm feeling an awesome difference since I released my heart wall. She did this on herself. To begin with, my self-esteem has gone up to the sky. Secondly, I've been having one creative idea after the other. That's where those creative ideas come from. They come from the heart. I feel the driving force, which seemed to have left me long ago, is back again with a lot of strength. I cannot really express how grateful I am to you and to God in the first place that led me to find you in your work. Listen to this one. This is from another woman named